collectively, our role is to build a toolkit to understand audience response to content, so creative media. So that could be television, it could be film, it could be theatre, it could be club night, it could be any creative content. But what we're interested in is what's happening to audience members individually and collectively, both in their minds, their brains, their physiology. And we want to use that and use the toolkit we're developing to measure those things to understand the moments in which audience responses wax and wane. And we're using that information to inform and feed back to the creative industry so that they can use that to maybe change the content and maybe understand more what's going on with the audience. There's a long history of the introduction of new technologies in the creative industries, which have fallen completely flat. And the reason they've fallen completely flat on many occasions is because the audience really weren't interested in that new technology. The engineers developing that technology were really excited, but the audience didn't respond to it. And so there was huge investment and huge effort and energy put into those new technologies. But at the end of the day, they didn't make a difference to the audience. So at the core of what we're trying to do is understand what makes this a more exciting, more engaging, life-changing, life-enhancing experience for an audience, and can we measure that?
Questionnaires are really useful, but they're kind of limited in that they're entirely subjective. So for all sorts of reasons, audiences might not be entirely, or might not exactly tell you how they really felt about something. But also questionnaires are retrospective. So you kind of ask someone at the end of a piece of content, and then you're asking them to kind of remember the previous 2 hours in the case of like a feature-length film, and you're not going to capture the continuity of that experience. So we're really interested in developing objective and continuous measures, in particular kind of physiological measures. So heart rate synchrony is one measure that seems to really capture how engaged someone is in a piece of content. And then I'm kind of looking at how brain activity changes as people are really immersed in what they're watching or experiencing. And then there's lots of other methods that we're kind of working with. So kind of remote monitoring, face tracking, thermal imaging, all sorts of things.
So we've brought together this team to develop an immersion toolkit. And the idea is that the toolkit would be something that could be used by the creative industries. And we know in academia that most people use things like questionnaires and self-report to look at audience experience. And our aim is to develop this toolkit that ranges beyond self-report, that does look at questionnaires, but also looks at behavioural measures and looks at EEG, and that we can use in the lab, but also in the real world, and can be taken on by creative partners, little parts of it or larger measures.